Blake Lively is back in the spotlight. Amid the Gossip Girl alum's lawsuit with her It Ends With Us co-star Justin Baldoni.
Imagine this. One of Hollywood's biggest stars, Blake Lively, standing at the center of a legal storm so intense that it's not just her reputation on the line, but also that of major media outlets like the New York Times. What started as a high-profile lawsuit meant to take down Justin Baldoni and Wayfair Studios has now spiraled into a tangled web of lawsuits, countersuits, public relations disasters, and media controversy. First, the world watched in shock as Blake launched serious accusations against Baldoni, sparking outrage and grabbing headlines.
Tonight, scandal rocking Hollywood as the fallout begins from Blake Lively's explosive allegations against co-star Justin Baldoni.
But now, the tables have turned, and it looks like Blake might be fighting a battle she can't win. From her own lawyer abruptly walking away, to Baldoni striking back with a $400 million countersuit loaded with shocking evidence, to the New York Times itself facing accusations of reckless reporting, this case has become a full-blown Hollywood meltdown. And here's the wild part: if you think this is just another celebrity spat, think again. Today, we're peeling back the curtain to reveal all the hidden moves, exposed secrets, and unexpected twists that are sending shockwaves through Hollywood. By the time we're done, you won't believe how deep this rabbit hole goes, or how much is really at stake.
Parties, of course, meeting for the first time in court today. It was about a 90-minute hearing.
This isn't going to end well for you, Blake. Sorry.
Let's start with what could be the most telling sign that Blake Lively's lawsuit is falling apart: the shocking moment when her own lead attorney, Meryl Conant, quit the case. Now let that sink in. When an A-list celebrity like Blake launches a high-profile lawsuit, you expect her legal team to stand by her side to the bitter end. But that's not what happened here. Instead, Conant walked away, reportedly unable to continue defending a case that seemed to be collapsing from within. Sources close to the case say Conant was under massive pressure, trying to piece together a defense for Blake without any real evidence to back up her claims.
So we were always like, are we too connected? Are we too vibing? What's happening?
Imagine being in court, expected to present a solid case, only to realize there are no supporting texts, no emails, no messages, nothing to prove the dramatic accusations being made. It's a lawyer's worst nightmare. And for Blake, Conant's departure sent a powerful message. If even her trusted attorney was unwilling to keep fighting, what did that say about the strength of her case? But as we'll see, that was only the beginning of Blake's unraveling legal war. Blake thought her lawsuit would intimidate Justin Baldoni into submission. She was in for a shock. Because the moment Conant walked away, Baldoni's team didn't just respond. They hit back harder than anyone expected.
Accused of something, you feel pretty devastated. And he's looking for justice. And he's a great man.
They filed a jaw-dropping $400 million countersuit, filled with 170 pages of evidence that painted a completely different story from what Blake's team had been telling the world. This wasn't just a standard counterclaim. It was a scorched earth response designed to expose the truth and defend Baldoni's name. These documents included private emails, text messages, contracts, and behind-the-scenes communications, all of which, according to Baldoni's team, proved that Blake's allegations were fabricated. Instead of a narrative of victimization, the evidence showed Blake allegedly orchestrating drama behind the scenes.
Asking for the gag order and explaining how he's talking too much. He's threatening to post stuff on public sites. So what I think is, this looks good for Baldoni.
Suddenly, what had been framed as a clear-cut case of harassment and misconduct began to look like something much more complicated and much more damaging for Blake. And as we'll uncover, this countersuit didn't just target Blake. It also pointed fingers at some of the biggest players in the media world. Things went from bad to worse when the New York Times found itself dragged into the chaos. Initially, the Times published an article covering Blake's claims, but instead of presenting both sides, they seemed to adopt her narrative as fact, without thoroughly checking the other side. And now, that decision might cost them more than they ever imagined.
One of the key allegations in her complaint against Justin Baldoni was as follows, okay, from paragraph 48 of her complaint. She writes, on another occasion, Mr. Baldoni and Ms. Lively were filming a slow dance scene for a montage in which no sound was recorded.
Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, isn't holding back. He's accusing the Times of acting like Blake's personal PR agency, rather than a neutral news outlet. And if that's proven true, the Times could face a massive defamation lawsuit, possibly costing them millions. But it gets even more alarming. Friedman claims the Times rushed to publish the article right before the holidays, giving Baldoni's team less than 24 hours to respond. That's right, less than a day to fight back against a narrative that could destroy careers. This raises serious questions about media ethics and whether the Times knowingly participated in shaping a false narrative. What's clear is that the Times is now facing a legal storm of their own, and it's only getting uglier. But wait, there's another layer to this story that makes it even more explosive.
Reading all the messages between them all, and which he's been putting out, obviously, and it just seems like a pair of absolute weapons-grade narcissists now spray gunning each other with as much dirt as they can possibly do.
While Blake's legal team was busy filing lawsuits, her PR machine was working overtime behind the scenes. According to reports, Blake and her team hired top-tier crisis managers and public relations experts to push her story into the headlines and keep public sympathy on her side. But here's the problem. As the real facts started coming out, it became clear that this was about more than justice. It was about manipulating public perception. And that strategy? It's now backfiring. Instead of solidifying Blake's position, it's making people ask tough questions. If her case was so strong, why the need for such an aggressive PR blitz? Why lean on media giants to tell a one-sided story?
And then did this crazy thing called reading Justin Baldoni's countersuit and was like, listen, I know this is going to sound crazy, but everything that I'm reading here points to the fact that Blake Lively manipulated her audiences and lied to her audiences.
The longer this saga unfolds, the more it seems like Blake's team was fighting a war for public opinion, while hoping no one would notice the holes in her case. Now let's get to the part that really turned everything upside down: the evidence. When Brian Friedman and Baldoni's team released that massive 170-page filing, it wasn't just paperwork. It was a bombshell. Every major accusation Blake had made, from sexual harassment to body shaming, was methodically debunked. There were no text messages, no emails, no witnesses supporting her claims, nothing. Instead, what the documents showed was something entirely different. A series of communications that made Blake's accusations look more like a calculated attempt to manipulate the situation. Worse, some of the evidence even suggested that Blake was actively working to undermine Baldoni and Wayfair Studios long before the lawsuit was filed. Think about that. A case built on serious allegations with no real proof, yet pushed forward publicly and legally. And even when Friedman laid out the holes in Blake's claims, her team didn't back down. They kept pushing the narrative. But with that kind of evidence coming to light, it was only a matter of time before the truth started catching up to them. You'd think the New York Times would have been cautious when covering such explosive allegations, but instead they jumped headfirst into the controversy. According to Friedman, the Times didn't just report on Blake's claims, they practically endorsed them, publishing her side as fact without proper verification. And here's why that's dangerous. Under U.S. defamation law, news outlets are protected when they report on lawsuits, but only if they make it clear they're reporting allegations, not facts. Friedman argues that the Times blurred that crucial line, framing Blake's version of events as truth and giving it the stamp of legitimacy. Even worse, they published their article right before Christmas, giving Baldoni's team mere hours to respond. That's not journalism, that's playing PR.
Blake Lively fears profound mental health issues are at risk of being leaked amid Justin Baldoni legal drama.
Now, the Times is facing a legal nightmare of their own. Friedman's right, they could lose the protections that normally shield media outlets and be held accountable for serious damages. And with a lawsuit this big, the consequences could be staggering. And here's a twist that might just bring Blake's entire case crashing down. Friedman is fighting to move the case out of New York and into California. Why? Because California has some of the toughest defamation laws in the country, especially when it comes to protecting people's reputations in the entertainment industry. If the case moves to California, the stakes get way higher. Suddenly, Blake isn't just facing a fight over her claims. She's facing the potential for massive financial damages. Friedman argues that because Baldoni and Wayfair are based in California, that's where the real damage was done. Makes sense. Their reputations, their careers, their business deals, all rooted in California. If the judge agrees to move the case, Blake's lawsuit could collapse before it even reaches trial. And for the New York Times, it means they'd be fighting on Baldoni's home turf, where courts take defamation very seriously. First, public opinion seemed firmly on Blake's side. But as more evidence surfaced and the countersuit exposed glaring holes in her story, the tide began to turn. People started asking tough questions. How could these serious allegations have no solid proof? Why did her lawyer quit? Even high-profile figures like Lady C, known for exposing media manipulation, started calling Blake and the Times out, accusing them of running a coordinated smear campaign against Baldoni and Wayfair. And here's the thing about public opinion. Once it turns fast. What was once sympathy for Blake has shifted to skepticism. People are beginning to see this case as a dangerous example of how PR and media power can shape public perception, sometimes without any real facts to back it up. And that shift could have long-term consequences for Blake's career and reputation. So where does this all go from here? Friedman is fighting hard to get this case in front of a jury, and if he succeeds, we could be looking at one of the most explosive trials Hollywood has ever seen.
And that's why I want to personally extend my gratitude to Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively.
Imagine this. All the secret emails, the text messages, the backdoor PR conversations, all laid bare in open court with the world watching. Blake's claims fall apart in front of a jury. It won't just be a legal loss. It will be a total collapse of her public image. And let's not forget the New York Times. Friedman can prove they acted recklessly. They'll face a legal and public backlash like never before. Either way, this isn't just about one lawsuit anymore. It's about setting a precedent for how far media and celebrities can go before they're held accountable. So what's the real takeaway here? Blake Lively's once untouchable reputation is now hanging by a thread. Her legal team is falling apart, the New York Times is facing potential defamation claims, and the public is watching every move with a more critical eye than ever before. This case isn't just about allegations. It's about how narratives are shaped, how media can be weaponized, and how even the biggest names in Hollywood can find themselves vulnerable when the truth starts to surface. Whether you support Blake, stand with Baldoni, or are just an observer, one thing is clear: this case is a wake-up call about celebrity influence and media responsibility. And as it heads toward trial, the whole world will be watching to see who tells the real story, and who's been hiding the truth all along.